welcome back. When was the last time you've given yourself a pat on the back for taking the time to make art? There's this strange and puzzling impulse that some of us have at times, and it's the impulse to avoid making art or to question the worth of spending time on art. Whether this is due to the fear of failure or simply thinking that there just isn't enough time to work on anything, what starts as an impulsive thought can easily be spun into a lengthy list of better things to do. There are likely innumerable justifications we can make to ourselves to not spend the time we have drawing. And I find this concept puzzling because you would think that as artists, making art would be the last thing we talk ourselves out of doing, yet many of us do it every day. For many years, I've observed that in moments between busy periods of my day-to-day life, when I only had a few minutes to spare, I would occasionally ponder whether it was worth spending such a small amount of time drawing. More often than not, I would put it off for another time, reasoning with myself that it would be better to spend time drawing if I had an hour or more to spare and not just a few minutes. Otherwise, it isn't really worth it. And the scale of this would increase as I continued to let these thoughts dictate how little I draw. I would wish I had days to spend drawing and not just a few hours, weeks and not just a few days. The amount of time spent determining the worth of drawing in these moments outweighed any time actually spent drawing. I have a problem with these degenerative thought patterns. They hinge on feelings that don't actually determine the quality of anything you would make if you just sat down and did it anyway. Certain thoughts about how we should be spending our time can spoil the practice if left unresolved. I'm not saying that you should force yourself to spend every free moment you have doing art, and I'm also not suggesting that you should prioritize it over more important matters as they come up in your life. But what I am talking about is pondering the value of spending time making art. It could be the case that when you notice you have some time to spare, and the idea of potentially using this time to draw suddenly flickers in your mind, you feel a certain type of resistance, a kind of resistance that causes you to battle with the idea of just making art, despite your preconceived expectations of value and benefits to be gained from doing this over something else. Pondering the worth of drawing so as to conclude to not do it is all it takes to cave to this often subtle resistance. Drawing is hard. Starting a piece of art is hard. And for a lot of artists, knowing what to draw is hard. But speaking from my own experience, when I decide that I will use this time to draw, and I insist on drawing anyway, I'm soon reminded of the fact that drawing is a necessity. It is crucial for me to create. I find drawing so addicting. It's hard to stop once I get into it, and it's so crazy to me how I come to forget this fact if I constantly decide to not spend time with it. Despite what anyone may say, it's always worth it to create your art for any amount of time at any level of skill. It doesn't matter too much what you draw or how well you draw it. The act of synthesizing imagery seemingly out of thin air is a mystical oddity that is worthy of investing time into in and of itself. Take the time to recognize and appreciate this strange phenomenon that your hand is somehow capable of. Even in recognizing this, you might still find it difficult to commit time to your art, despite knowing it's something you want to do. I know that for a lot of artists, time spent drawing is time spent being confused. It's time spent being anxious or frustrated. Simply believing these things to be the case can be enough to dissuade your creative impulse time and time again. When these thoughts appear, do you know from where they originate? Would you rather spend your time doing something else? Do you enjoy making your art? Did you at some point stop enjoying making your art? And if you did, do you know why? It may be useful to reframe your perspective of the practice and construct what you believe would be the ideal relationship between you and your art. Think about what elements it would possess. Your art practice can be meditative, It can be therapeutic. It can be as healing, restorative, or self-actualizing as you want it to be. It can be the source of great teachings about the process, the passage of time, and the difficulties and perplexities of life. There's so much to learn from art, and it can teach you as much as you're willing to allow it to. No amount of time is guaranteed, so don't waste the time you do have talking yourself out of doing your art or engaging in negative thought patterns. Know that spending your precious time drawing is such a noble and fruitful investment in yourself. And when your mind begins to question the value of the thing that you know you love doing, remind yourself of the truth. Remind yourself of the fact that time spent drawing is time well spent. Thanks for listening.